What's up, guys? Welcome back to VHB Engines. Thought I'd take some time today to discuss a topic that I generally always glaze over, and that is heads. As a matter of fact, out of all the engine builds and stuff I've done, y'all have never seen me do a head except for that one that I did that didn't even finish yet, which I plan to. The one I haven't finished yet, simply because, and I did that for the sake of the channel, people asking questions about head rebuilds. But the reason why is because okay, so I do all my engine building on the best budget I can get. I want to make certain powers, and I don't want to exceed certain budgets. Mainly, because I'm cheap and I like to do things cheap, but two, I don't like to go all crazy. I like to be able to reuse whatever's there already to make the power off of. Plus, I'm a big fan of turbo. I'm a big fan of forced induction. So when you look at the capabilities of the stock motor as it is already, you don't really need to do too much reinforcing for the power limits that I like to set myself. I know that 10 years ago, 300 and 400 horsepower builds were still not as common, and it was kind of a big deal. But nowadays, you got people shooting well above the 500 horsepower mark, and I just, because once I said a million times in my videos, I'm a pump gas guy. I don't see me going past 500 horsepower anytime soon. Plus, because of the fact that what you do, you gotta spend a lot more money. A lot more money on fuel upgrades, a lot more money on transmission stuff. Because usually trannies are the place where you start to have failures more so than the engine. Anyway, I'm going off topic here, but the reason why I'm saying I usually glaze over the heads is because I've never had to modify a head or rebuild a head. Like I've said before, on other videos, that if you're smoking, your engine's smoking, 9 out of 10 times it's the rings over a valve seal failure. Not saying it doesn't happen, but it's just that's the more likely thing. All right, so you don't really have to do anything to your head, especially if you're not trying to. The only time you would, under 500 horsepower, if you're trying to make big power, or if you're trying to make power that you have to affect the heads, if you're doing it NA, like if you're doing a naturally aspirated build, you're trying to milk the most out of it, then yeah, you need to go in and port and polish and do cam upgrades and all that stuff. But I, generally speaking, I like to force air from a turbo, so I don't need the port and polish and all that shit because I already know where I'm going to go to, and I know that the head can do that. Now, on a standpoint from a forced induction build, the only time you really need to change out your valve train is if you're going to upgrade cams, and because you can use a GSR cam as a drop-in replacement, which is what I recommend everybody because it's cheaper than a Type R, but close enough to a Type R where if you were to go between a GSR and a Type R cam, it's not going to make a huge difference. So GSR cams, you can get them anywhere between $40 to $80. Even on eBay, you can get them for like $100. So not a bad cam for a drop-in cam. And if you're using stock cam like that, you don't have to worry about reinforcing your valve train because that cam is not overly aggressive. So then I've had a friend of mine who likes to drop this all the time. I mean, valve float. Well, the only time you have to really worry about valve float is if you're like revving like off the charts. Like personally, I like to keep it around 8,000, 85. Your tuner will know where to keep it simply because of the fact that you know where you start running out of power, and you'll know to shift anyway. If the power starts to drop off or it's even, then there's no point of revving higher. If you're in a higher horsepower car and you're fucking revving to 10K, if you got to rev that high, usually you done lost that race, Unless you're at a drag strip and you're picking out specific cars that are real close to your class of power, no real need to keep revving out. Just rev to where where the normal baseline red line is, and that's 8,000, 8,500 for Doc VTEC, and you'll be fine there. So you do not need to put a new valve train, the springs, retainers, and all that stuff, unless you're going to go with an aggressive cam. And you don't really need an aggressive cam upgrade if you're going to go boost. Will it help a little bit on saving some, boost pressure PSI? Yeah, probably. But you're not going to put anywhere near enough strain on the head itself if you're going to boost and make like in the 400s. So that's why I don't really focus on head work. I want to get into that a little bit later, but it's not something I'm in a big rush to. Just because of the fact that I want to touch on it more for your all's sake over the mine, because I I don't really see me doing many NA builds. I may do one or two in the future, but not anytime soon. I just wanted to show some head love, or just explain to you guys why I don't, you know. And recently I found out too, as you know, I've been doing a lot of research with Evans Tuning, and I'm gonna leave a description for his channel. He's got a YouTube channel. It's kind of old, but I don't think he's focused on it too much. The guy's, I'm sure he's making bank off of tuning itself and engine building. He's got a huge dyno database that has a whole bunch of different stuff in there that I've even gone at and looked at, poured over for hours at a time, you know, looking at different combinations for different power levels and stuff. And I think that you guys would be interested in that, so I'm going to leave a link for his website as well as a link to his YouTube channel. So the reason why I mentioned him is because I was watching one of his videos talking about, you know, different things to do for a K-Series build, and how he was saying that for a K-Series, you don't really want to upgrade the cams to something aftermarket, just keep it OEM, which is perfect for me because that's exactly what I like to do. I like to do OEM upgrades. I like to mix different OEM parts to get the most out of those above, you know, going with a build. And he was saying that once you go to an aggressive cam with a K, you won't really make a lot more extra power, and you'll start to have other OEM components start to fail as a result of that. So, and I think the same thing with the B series head, guys. I know that I focus on the B and D a lot, but I don't really go on other shit. But it's just simply because the fact is what I have the most experience with, and eventually I'll get to the other ones. I'll get the H and F series eventually. But what I'm telling you right now about the Doc VTech heads is, you know, it's pretty much the same to go with the D, H, F, all of them shits. It's just, if you're gonna go forced induction, you don't really need to upgrade. Now, if you want to fucking port and polish and all that stuff, and you can find it at a good price, then by all means do so. But the only real thing you need to worry about is if you're gonna stay under 500 horsepower, is just focus on your block. Focus on reinforcing and strengthening your block. Don't worry so much about your head beyond a basic refresher at the most. You know, and even then, I wouldn't even really consider a super refresh if the head is clean, like as in like the mating surface for the gasket's clean is even, then you don't even really need to worry about it too much. You can get a head, check it out, make sure it's not damaged, just slap it on and go. If you want to spend a little money to make sure your head is fine, then I would say at the most just clean it and put some new valve seals. Keep everything else OEM just to save you some pocket change. You know, you don't really need to worry about doing all this shit with the machine shop just to have people be impressed by your build. You know, do what's practical and what saves you money. Like I've also said before, you know, most people don't keep their Hondas more than a year at a time. You know, even if you do a lot of stuff to it, you get bored. You tend to get bored. It's a rare story to hear somebody's had their shit 3 or 4 plus years. So I'm not saying that intentionally build a shitty car and then try and milk some money off that, but I wouldn't worry about trying to build a car that you're worried about lasting for 25 years if you're not going to keep it for more than a year and never get that money back. It's proven. I mean, it's one thing, it's time and time again, you're never going to make money back on your build. So why kill your pockets for something that you don't really need just to make your build list look a little fancy? All right, guys, hope this gives you all some insight. If you're new here, you might want to check out some of the stuff I have going on in the rest of the channel. And like the video, please, if you got anything out of it. And if you haven't already and you want to stick around and see some more, feel free to subscribe. All right, I have links to my Facebook and Twitter and all that good shit in the description. If you guys want to ask me some private questions and don't want to put it on the channel, feel free to inbox me there, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, which is usually right away. All right, thanks, guys, for watching. Peace.